chaos!
Hello, Rivals fans, and welcome back to the Rivals Report, the show that gets you up to speed on Rivals esports news in a nice, bite-sized package. My name is Diatonic, and this is the Rivals Report number 31 for the week of January 12th, 2026. On this week's report, Season 5 of the Marvel Rivals Championship has finally wrapped up over this past weekend. We've got a full results breakdown of the three major regions covering all the newly crowned champions. Plus, this week marks the first entry in our latest recurring segment here on the Rivals Report, the Scouting Spotlight. Don't miss our player profiles on three of the biggest names in Rivals esports for 2025. We'll also be catching you up on the latest community initiatives as we welcome a brand new Rivals esports stats and news site, as well as an imminent project in the collegiate space. Well, with just a few more days until the start of Season 6 in Rivals, the Season 5 MRC is finally drawn to a close. This MRC has been one of the most brutal yet, with the pros coming out in full force to skyrocket this tournament's skill ceiling. But with all the mixing and matching of free agents, how did these new conglomerate factions fare? Let's break things down, starting with the Americas region. Team Guilty would square off with Doom Crew in the upper bracket finals, the first grand finals deciding match of the tournament. But Doom Crew had battled through an incredibly difficult upper bracket, one that had prepared them to go all out in these last few matches. They'd wrangled themselves a grand final slot with a 3-0 victory over Team Guilty. Team Guilty were just never quite able to find the breakthrough they needed, facing off with the impenetrable wall of Doom Crew's defenses. Guilty would face similar struggles in their lower bracket matchup against Mutants as well. There were certainly moments where Guilty were able to make the Mutants sweat, but they were unable to find a map win in this series as well, with Mutants earning a grand final slot 3-0. And that win earned Mutants a rematch against Doom Crew in the grand finals, with Mutants looking to avenge their earlier loss to Doom Crew in round 10. And from the start of this final showdown, it seemed like Mutants had learned a thing or two from their previous encounter, picking up a map 1 win on Hell's Heaven. It'd take all 3 points though, meaning Doom Crew were far from gassed in this tournament. They'd return fire on Burn and T'Challa, flipping the script and evening the score off a 2-1 win and a massive Gambit game for Coopertastic. That gave them the momentum to snowball onto Celestial Husk for map 3, winning once again, and this time without dropping a point. Doom Crew would deliver a thrashing on map 4, winning Hall of Djalia in just 5.5 minutes. Mutants had to start finding some answers, and they hoped to get one on Spider Islands next. But things were looking bleak as Mutants were stopped short of the first checkpoint, yet another Iron Curtain defense from Doom Crew. And in just 1 minute and 30 seconds after swapping sides, Doom Crew would seal the deal, and Doomsday would be achieved with a 4-1 win over the Mutants. Things went a bit differently in the EMEA region, with Saudi team the Lions forfeiting out of both upper and lower bracket finals due to one of their players traveling. This meant that Chopped were moving on to the finals from the upper bracket side, and Navi completed an absolutely insane run through the lower bracket into the grand finals. And what a matchup to wrap up the 5th season of the MRC for EMEA. These two Ignite squads went toe-to-toe, starting things off with some domination action on Burn and T'Challa. But Navi were here to do business as usual, making it a fairly straightforward affair by taking the series lead in both capture points. Chopped would swing back hard as we traveled to Central Park next. This map would be a knockdown, drag-out slugfest, going nearly 20 minutes and taking things into extra rounds. Navi would face a 30-second time disparity going into those extra rounds, and Chopped would make it a 1-1 series in overtime. Off to Hell's Heaven for map 3, and Navi would seriously start picking up some steam from here on out. They made this one snappy, earning themselves both capture points in under 7 minutes on the battlefield. And Navi would score another complete shutout on Symbiotic Surface for map 4, holding most members of Chopped to just 1 or 2 elims. And the Chopped's life bar blinking red, it was on to Yggdrasil Path for the 5th map. This one would go long, and Chopped battled tooth and nail to stay alive, but they couldn't get their heads above water in time, and Navi would complete a generational lower bracket run to win the tournament. And it was all Ignite squads in the top 3 of the Pacific region MRC, starting with a showdown between Asia's XOXO01 and Oceania's Chopper Mag to decide the first slot. But the OCE squad was ready for this showdown, delivering a nearly unscathed 3-0 win to XOXO. There were some bright spots for EXO in the last map of the series on Celestial Husk, but they couldn't find the breakthrough they needed to stay alive. They'd square off with Asia rivals Crazy Raccoon down in the lower bracket finals, and they'd struggle here as well. Crazy Raccoon jumped out to an early 2-0 lead without dropping a single point on those first 2 maps, then they'd close it out with a more contentious win on Araco. It was 3 strikes you're out for XOXO, and they sent Crazy Raccoon on a collision course with the powerhouse of Oceania. And the stage was set for the Pacific Grand Finals, the first ever encounter between the Asia and Oceania Stage 2 champions. And at first, the OCE superpower of Chopper Mag seemed unstoppable. They snagged both points of Hell's Heaven in convincing fashion, preventing every player on CR from getting double-digit elims. And the work continued on Hall of Djalia next, with Chopper Mag locking the Raccoons down for a 1-0 win. By the time the fight reached Central Park, it seemed like Crazy Raccoon had completed the download, a 20-minute slugfest that ended in a 4-3 win for Chopper Mag. But Crazy Raccoon turned the tide and got themselves on the board on Burn and T'Challa next, crushing the OCE Titans 2-0 on that map. It seemed as though the Asia powerhouse had finally earned themselves a second win, putting up a heck of a fight on Midtown. But after nearly 15 minutes, Chopper Mag cut down Crazy Raccoon's final tournament life and earned themselves the Pacific Championship. This was perhaps the best MRC in recent memory from a spectator standpoint. We got a good look at where some of the Ignite favorites from last year are standing, and saw the formation of some dream teams as players mingled and formed new factions just for this MRC. And this closes the first chapter for the Marvel Rivals Championship, as the Season 6 MRC will be the first to feed into the new 2026 Ignite season. Going forward, the MRC will be more important than ever, and will be a great first look at the next crop of Ignite competitors. Congratulations to the new champions, and best of luck to the teams throwing their hat in the ring in the new ecosystem. And this week on the Rivals Report, we're introducing a new recurring segment we're calling the Scouting Spotlight. As we eagerly await the start of the 2026 Rivals Esports season, we're helping new fans get up to speed through a series of player profiles. We've picked some of the top names in Rivals Esports, looking to cover everything from key players, major free agents, and any and all big player storylines carrying over from 2025. We're kicking off our Scouting Spotlight with a player that's in the conversation of the best duelist in the Americas region. Their competitive career began all the way back in the pre-release tournaments and has blazed a path of success through the region ever since. Recently signed to the 2025 Mid-Season Finals champion roster of Navi, what better way to kick off our player profiles than with the terrifying Terra? But to tell Terra's story, like for many of the other Rivals pros in these early days, you have to go all the way back to prior hero shooter experience, where he was originally known as Aferseed. His first foray into competition was part of a squad known as Blue Team, where he competed in a PC versus console Overwatch show match organized by Rivals partner J3. There, he'd compete alongside players who would become future Rivals teammates Delena and Vinny. Team Blue would make the jump to Rivals during the War of the Realms tournament, picking up more future teammates such as TTK, Harvey, SJP, and Nuck. Terra would go on to win the Season 0 MRC alongside those teammates as the faction Mutants, and would eventually be signed as the 100 Thieves Marvel Rivals squad. As a member of the Thieves, Terra would see incredible success early on, winning both the Season 0 MRC as well as the Marvel Rivals Invitational a couple months later. This early success would help them earn an invite to Ignite, and they'd continue their successful streak there. Though they didn't manage to win a LAN in 2025, Terra would have the opportunity to compete in both the Mid-Season Finals in Guangzhou, China, as well as the Grand Finals at DreamHack Atlanta. And based on recorded earnings, he's listed among some of the highest earners in competitive Rivals thus far. Terra is a ruthless duelist player, wielding heroes like Winter Soldier and Phoenix to provide explosive damage output and game-changing picks engagement after engagement. He's also known to pull characters like Wolverine and Iron Fist out of the back pocket when necessary. He served as the team anchor in many of his matches with the Thieves, driving the team and helping to set the pace even when other members were struggling to come online. Terra may not be the most consistent of all duelist players in the game, but he has what may very well be one of the highest ceilings in the game today. He departed the Thieves when the org announced they'd be pausing operations in the wake of Grand Finals, but it wasn't long before EMEA powerhouse Navi announced that he'd be joining their ranks. And speaking of EMEA, we're shifting gears to Europe for our next entry. This player is a massive contributor to the team currently holding the title of World Champions, and in general one of the winningest teams in Marvel Rivals. He initially built his resume in the Overwatch League and the OWCS, but would go on to become Rivals' first ever Grand Finals MVP. We are, of course, talking about Virtus Pro duelist player Sparker. Sparker's journey to competitive Rivals also begins in prior hero shooters, as the VP powerhouse would cut his teeth as part of the OWL's London Spitfire Academy team, the British Hurricane. After tearing it up in the 2020 Contenders League, he'd get his shot on the big stage alongside the rest of the Spitfire in the 2021 regular season. He'd log his final season of competitive Overwatch as a member of Space Station Gaming in the 2024 OWCS before finally making the leap to Rivals. Sparker debuted in Rivals during the Season 0 MRC alongside a faction called Team Cats. Team Cats would clear the upper bracket of the MRC without dropping a single map and would dominate Yoikanda with a 4-0 win in the Grand Finals. Team Cats would be signed to Virtus Pro, where they'd continue that path of destruction through every single competitive event they entered. They went on a mind-blowing win streak in the weekly Rivals Fight Night show match series, and would also win the Season 1 MRC. They'd finally meet their match in surprising fashion during Ignite Stage 1, being eliminated by Berber Patapim, the team that would go on to become Citadel. As a result, they missed the mid-season LAN in China. They'd reclaim their dominance by winning both the Season 3 MRC as well as EMEA Stage 2, and they would ascend to the throne of Immortals with a dominating performance in the 2025 Grand Finals. Sparker is quite possibly the most dominating duelist player not just in EMEA, but the entire world. He'd earned himself the Grand Finals MVP thanks to his incredibly smart positioning and plays, consistent high performance, and his cool head. Whether it's Psylocke, Winter Soldier, or even a Hela or Star-Lord pick, Sparker is always maxing out the damage meter and picking up an eyebrow-raising amount of final hits. He's incredibly reliable, with the team comfortably leaning on him to help carry them through the toughest matchups. Though he can be incredibly aggressive, he keeps it balanced with awareness and constant team play, rarely finding himself overextended. And we'll round out our first batch of scouting reports with yet another player turned household name during the Grand Finals. He also changed regions prior to DreamHack, finding himself a key pillar in an unlikely group of heroes that would win the hearts and minds of fans during the tournament. Giving us one of the first true needle-mover moments in Rivals Esports history, we feel we have no choice but to retell the story of Chopper Mag's Bobo. Bobo's path to Pro Rivals was a bit different than the previous two duelists, as he held some initial interest in Apex Legends. While working a regular job, Bobo spent his free time streaming Apex as well as some Overwatch, with a dream of aspiring to something greater in esports. It may have seemed like he was a bit stuck, but things began to change for him after Rivals released. In Season 0, he grinded harder than he ever had before, climbing to rank 1 on the Chinese servers, and started streaming 10 plus hours a day as a Vanguard player. His dedication eventually earned him a spot with Nova Esports, and they'd clock a top 8 finish in the Season 0 MRC in China. While it may not have been as high of a placement as they'd hoped for, it was more than enough to convince Nova to stay in the game, and they'd quickly start to show improvements. Nova's roster was shuffled, and Bobo was slotted into a duelist position as they managed to finish 3rd in the Season 1 MRC, defeated by another top Chinese team in OUG. OUG would quickly become rivals to this roster, and they'd clash in the grand finals of Ignite Stage 1, where OUG would defeat them yet again. At the mid-season finals, Nova unfortunately underperformed, and the org decided to bow out of Rivals. But Bobo wouldn't fall through the cracks as the team parted ways, linking up with former Ground Zero OCE player FMCL, and he'd become part of a new Oceania team in Chopper Mag. Chopper Mag would absolutely dominate Stage 2 in OCE, and would go on to finish top 6 at DreamHack Atlanta. Their performance at Grand Finals won over many fans, with Bobo's emotional speech creating buzz around the event.
Nobody know me before this game. I have a job, and nobody know who I am. Now, everybody know us. We are Chopper Mag.
While Bobo does pack a punch in the Vanguard role, his time as a competitive Rivals player is spent as a duelist, bringing insane damage output and pressure to his opponents. He confidently commands match tempo and is skilled at finding openings most would look right past. He's at his best during the early engage period, assassinating high-value targets before they get a chance to make an impact in the team fight. He's well known for his Psylocke plays, but has also been known to bring a mean Star-Lord and Punisher to the table. He's consistent, packs deadly precision, and has been an asset to the OCE powerhouse of Chopper Mag since day one. And that's a wrap for our first batch of player profiles, but not to worry. We'll be back with more next week and plan on branching out beyond just DPS players. We'll be bringing you profiles on prolific players, both signed and free agents, leading up to the Ignite preseason later this year. Be sure to subscribe so you can learn more about these key players in the scene and maybe even discover your new favorite. And finally this week, in the wake of the 2026 eSport announcements, it's no surprise that the community is already moving to introduce more Rivals events, tools, and content. While not quite full-on deep dives, we wanted to bring to your attention 2 projects of interest if you follow the competitive Rivals scene. The first of which is a brand new competitive website looking to house all sorts of Rivals competitive news, history, and info in mrvl.net. On the site, you're able to review past events, see team and player profiles as well as their complete match history, participate in forum discussions, and much, much more. It combines the best parts of stat aggregation from other sources like Liquipedia with a rundown of news stories, patch notes, and other general Rivals content. It's completely free and still getting off the ground, so be sure to check it out. A link to MRVL is down in the description. We've also got another exciting project for the collegiate Rivals fans out there. The world of collegiate esports in general may be more broad than you think if you've never looked into it. And that's no different from Marvel Rivals, with several organizations such as NECC, PCL, and of course the Collegiate Rivals series hosting tournaments. The Collegiate Rivals Network is looking to bring news and info from all across the Collegiate Rivals spectrum under a single umbrella. While not quite ready to fully unveil the project just yet, the CRN is promising to bring Collegiate Rivals content, including podcasts, power rankings, and more. Be sure to follow them on Twitter for updates and join the Discord server, links to both of which are down below. Well, that's all for this week's Rivals Report. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date on the latest in Marvel Rivals esports. And be sure to follow me on other platforms including Twitch, X, and TikTok. I've been Diatonic, you've been amazing, and I'll see you in-game.